WSOU 89.5 FM. I'm Valentino, and I'm joined today with Nick from Bayside. How are you doing today, Nick?
Good. Just kind of starting my day here. I live in California, so I'm a couple hours off from you, but got my coffee, chill with my dog this morning, just kind of having a normal Monday morning. Mondays are chill for me. Tuesdays are my big work day. Chris and I run Legal Speed Coffee Roasters out here in California, and Tuesday's kind of my big day that I do all of our shipping and delivery and stuff. So Monday's a little chill, so I'm just taking it easy right now.
Yeah, Tuesdays are also my busy days, so I feel you. But I have to ask, obviously, Legal Speed Coffee.
Mhm.
Super cool that this coffee company has like really taken off in the last few years. I gotta ask personally, being kind of like a coffee fanatic,
Mhm.
what's your favorite kind of coffee? Do you like cream, sugar? Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh no. I mean my coffee journey is years long. I started to get more and more into just the idea of going to get coffee with friends, like that's kind of where the genesis of it all. But back on Long Island, 10 or so years ago when I started to get more into coffee, all there was Starbucks. We didn't get like our first like true like third wave roaster until maybe 6 years ago on Long Island. So it's been a little bit of a journey learning, what good coffee is and what I like and stuff. But I for sure am mostly a cold brew person. So thankfully here in California, even though I own my own coffee roasting company, I still like to go get coffee. It's like just part of the
Yeah.
process, part of the day. So yeah, I just walk, 7 minutes to the local like little roaster over here and grab a cold brew every morning with my dog. So just black cold brew, black if it's a little chilly out or whatever, black, normal drip or something. I don't even these days I don't even get anything fancy like pour overs and all that type of stuff. So pretty simple these days.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. Is like, even though you have your own very successful coffee chain, there's nothing like just going to a restaurant, getting like a nice mug of coffee, and just like
Yeah.
it's the experience. It's everything around it.
Exactly. And it's something, especially with like I've lacked routine for my whole life because I've toured for a living. So my days are normally free. There's not necessarily like a 9 to 5 or anything like that. So any little bit of routine I could have daily is like just kind of quenches that like human condition of wanting routine.
Mm. And especially people obviously in like the music industry of, touring musician, radio, our schedules are mainly night. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
we kind of live on coffee because
Yeah.
our schedules are so messed up.
Oh, absolutely.
But diving into the very exciting news, 21 years of really bad luck tour starting in a few months. How do you feel about finally going on tour again?
Yeah, it's once we finally announced it, which wasn't too long ago, maybe a month, 6 weeks ago. Once we finally announced that, that's when everyone started to be like, "Are you excited? Are you excited?" And my response, which I'll never hold punches, my response was very just from the chest, very real. I'm like, I'm not excited right now because I'm going to be 41 years old and I've been touring since I was 17 and there's just been a pandemic for 2 years. Like there's so many things that kind of get in the way of me being excited this early. I feel like just the older that I've gotten, the less we've toured. I kind of just compartmentalize home life and tour life. And when I'm doing one, I don't look forward to the other. When I'm on tour, I'm not excited to go home either. Like I kind of just enjoy everything in the moment. And now that it's August and the tour is actually creeping up, and I've been, rehearsing at least an hour a day just on my own here at home, it's becoming more real. And I know again I'll probably mention being old a million times on this on this interview, but like that time just passes differently now. I know I have like 3.5 weeks before I leave for tour and it's going to feel like a week to me, so I'm just trying to live every minute I can at home. And once we get on tour, I feel like we'll have a little, I want to say like transition couple of days where we rehearse, and then once we get to Fort Lauderdale, I know that even though we haven't been on tour in 2 years, it's just gonna all click back in, and I'll be excited. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm just hoping that really like I'm hoping everything is safe and there's not too much of a hindrance on like what COVID means to going to a show at this point, like
Mm,
especially in some of the places that are a little worse off. Like we're starting the tour in Florida. So
mm.
I'm really wondering how. I know attendance is going to be fine, but I'm just wondering, I'm just hoping everyone's comfortable and safe while we play, because it doesn't really it doesn't really seem like at this point that like it's going to be canceled or postponed or anything like that. So we're just going to do it, but we have to be safe about it because we can't afford, for the four of us and all of our crew, we can't afford to not tour again for another year. So everyone's really got to be safe and just go through with the tour and make sure every show happens.
That's the thing is like I was very similar to you where shows started to get announced in April and May, and I was like, I'm not excited. I will believe it when I'm in the pit for my first show. When I'm seeing a
Yeah.
band in the pit, that's when I'm gonna get excited. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had the privilege to see like Knuckle Puck and Rise Again, so it is starting
Cool.
to get back to normal. But I
Yep.
understand what you're saying, where it's like
Yeah.
everyone's just got to be safe. Everyone's got to take care of each other, and obviously the pandemic isn't poof gone, but it's
Yeah.
just like got to keep that in mind when going to
Yeah,
shows.
totally. It's I mean, we had our band talk last week just to, catch up before we're, like I said, we're 3.5 weeks away. We had our band talk and just about like, hey, we can't just go into this all willy-nilly like it's a normal tour. Like we really got to be safe because if one of us gets it and it's like a 2-week recovery or something, the tour's only 4 weeks. So it's like we can't just kiss like half the tour goodbye, like just because we didn't take it seriously enough. So we put together like a protocol list, and it's definitely gonna feel different from a normal, speaking of routine, like a normal tour routine. Like I think we're gonna stay pretty close to the bus and the venue every day and not really venture out and just like minimize risk. That's the term that we used a bunch. Like we really just got to minimize risk. We don't want to feel like we're like prisoners on our own bus or anything like that, but we just got to be smart about it.
And now I have to ask this question. I'll still call it the new album Interrobang, even though it is
Yeah.
a few years old. You dropped that record, got to tour with it for about just 3 months, and
Mhm.
then, boom, the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so that's got to be kind of a weird feeling to play those songs live again. I know you've been rehearsing, but like, is it going to be strange to kind of hype up a new record that's like not new?
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy about our band is we were planning our 20th anniversary tour since 2017. And everything we did from late 2017 to Interrobang coming out was planned based on 2020 being our huge anniversary year. So the Interrobang tour in 2019 was in small clubs on purpose because we didn't want to like go on tour 6 months after that Interrobang tour and expect people to, every single person to come back out. So we kept that 2019 tour, Interrobang tour, small so that like not everyone could come. And then the 2020 was supposed to be our big party. So what that really meant for us, especially financially, is from 2017 to 2019, we didn't really do that much. We kind of made enough money to get by because 2020 was going to be our big like make money, make money
Yeah.
year. So that kind of screwed with us a lot
Mm.
financially. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I think at this point, what do we have, 8 records or so, or 8 full lengths? I think whatever our newest record is always going to feel like the newest. So yeah, we only got to tour on that once, literally. We only toured on Interrobang once. We played 4 or 5 songs a night off of it. And I think on this upcoming tour, we'll probably throw 4 more in there, even though it's like a full career spanning set. Um, eh, it's not going to feel weird. It's going to feel kind of exciting because honestly, we played those songs for one tour and then didn't play them again for 2 years. So they kind of still feel very new. And there's just something about that album. It's one of my favorite two Bayside records that we've made. It's still fresh, not only because it's the newest, but because the way we wrote it, the way we recorded it, the process of just really the creative process behind it was different. It's always going to feel fresh. So I'm excited. Oh, people always ask like, "What's your favorite song to play live?" And mine's always just whatever's newest because it's the freshest, it's the most exciting. Maybe people don't know it as much, but for us playing it together, it feels really, really great. And that doesn't take anything away from playing like Devotion and Desire for the 1 millionth time, because obviously people love that song. So I love playing that too. But just in a like musician sense and a creative sense, playing the newer stuff is definitely a lot more fun. And there's just some rippers on that album. It's like
Yeah.
songs I ripped like harder than we've ever ripped before. So it's just a lot of fun to play.
I gotta be honest, I'm really happy to hear you say that because Interrobang is actually in my top two favorite Bayside albums as well. You know, like Cullen and Interrobang for me are just like
Hmm.
absolutely the best. And I think it's so
Nice.
cool for a band like you guys who've been around for 21 years to still be putting out your best material
Yeah.
now, you know? And that's, I know that like I've talked to a lot of Bayside fans, I've talked to a lot of industry people, I've talked to a lot of other radio personnel, and they all agree that like, you guys never like do the same record twice. It's never
Hmm.
stale, which is awesome. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely want to ask a bit. You mentioned the career spanning sets. This is going to be really cool because you're right. It's your 20th or 21st tour. Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about, what kind of deep cuts can we expect? What's that set list going to kind of look like?
It's tough and we joke about it all the time because it truly is tough to come up with stuff that we have 8 albums, stuff that dates back even older than that from when Anthony was the only original member. Um, Plenty of acoustic type stuff. I mean, it's a lot. So I don't know. Deep cut wise, what's strange is like I feel like the deep cuts are going to sort of take a little bit of a backseat to Interrobang because we only toured on Interrobang once, and it's an interesting record in the sense that like it was very immediate with our fans loving it, which is again like rare. And like you mentioned, like in your opinion, and I mean in my opinion too, like it's one of our best records, and it's like our eighth record. So um it feels good that we accomplished that with our eighth release, that it's fresh and it's new and it still fits in like the Bayside universe, but it's different, like it doesn't sound like, oh boy, they changed. It just sounded like we turned what makes us special up a couple of notches, and that's on purpose. It's so much easier for bands to be like, let's do something different this record, and then just completely change their style, which is not what we intended to do. We wanted to keep our
Mm.
style, keep what made us special, and just kind of amplify that. So I think the set list is, I mean, it's going to be a lot of what you expect, but I think at this point, like after 2 years of not playing at all, and the last tour we did was a smaller tour, so not everyone saw us. I mean, I think everyone just needs to have like a good, like reacquaint, reacquaint themselves with Bayside set, where we're playing all the stuff that everyone loves over the past 20 years, a bunch of newer songs, and we'll go from there. There'll be some deep cuts for sure. I think we have some plans for some like older tunes, also maybe throwing those up like on YouTube or something like that, like playing them a couple of times, not necessarily putting them in the set, but putting them up on, like, recording them properly, and throwing the videos up on YouTube, so we could at
Yeah.
least kind of celebrate some of the older stuff that we don't necessarily want to like throw in the set, because we want to have a good time, and I don't want to play a song that like 20 people know,
Yeah.
like I don't want to
Yeah.
like ruin the show with that when we could easily just throw in Interrobang songs or cult songs or whatever. So I think we've been kind of kicking around the idea of playing, like, for instance, like maybe some of those older EP songs, like
Yeah.
let's just do one or two of those, and just throw the video up on YouTube and let everyone who likes it just watch it, instead of throwing it in the set and it taking away from like us playing Montauk or something like that.
And that's a good point, is that like, when you do that, fans who like want to seek that out will find it, and then fans will also who haven't heard of that will hear it,
Yeah.
whereas if you're playing live, I know personally, I'd love to see deep cuts like Choice Hops or like We'll Be
Yeah.
Okay, but at the
Yeah.
same time I need to see like Tall live, I need to
Yeah.
see like, Bury Me, stuff from
Yeah.
Interrobang that you're right is new and so fresh,
Hmm.
but you guys never got the full opportunity to tour on that record.
Yeah, exactly. It's tough because we do, we're not one of these like crazy popular legacy acts like the Foo Fighters or the Killers, where they go out there and like every show is 3 hours and it's fine. It's like, no, we're still gonna play like 20 songs, stay out there for 90 minutes, which is long, but we have so many songs we have to play. And it
Yeah.
just, that takes up so much of the set. So it's, believe me, we stress over it a lot. So uh uh, and I want to say I'm normally like the flag bearer for the deep cuts and the newer stuff. um but even me this time around, I'm just like, no one's seen us in 2 years. This might be the one show people go to this year, like let's give them like really not necessarily what they want, but like what they might need. They might need to be able to sing along to like all 20 songs that we play, and not worry that, oh, I don't know this deep track, or oh, I don't like this deep track that much. And I'm gonna go to the bathroom or go get a beer right now. It's like, no, we want to keep people's attention for the full like 20, 21 songs that we play.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And, I totally agree with that. I think that that's a good thing. And, it's super cool that, when you're finally touring, you're going to play the hits. You're going to play stuff that people really want to know.
Yeah.
I do have to ask a question that I had in 2020, the original 20 Years of Bad Luck tour mentioned something about like a Bayside museum, like
Yeah.
come see the Bayside Museum. Now that wasn't on the upcoming
Mhm.
2021 tour poster. Is
Yeah.
that still a thing? What was that?
No, I mean, I think the original idea was just for us to have some sort of like Bayside memorabilia, like on display, kind of. In the venues we're playing are a little bigger, than usual, so there should be space in the venues for us to like kind of just put together, a couple of like props and memorabilia and stuff that fans would think was cool. But just that idea kind of just went out with COVID, like just
Yeah.
having kind of not only us planning the tour in a short amount of time, but we we just felt like it was just one more thing that like potentially people could be like touching things or congregating closely and like I don't know, it just seemed like one more thing to risk this time around. So I mean, hopefully it's a good idea, and we never like fully like fleshed it out because of COVID. So it's not like it was like really ready to go a year ago when we were supposed to be on tour. Once the pandemic hit, we kind of stopped planning that. So um, I think with this tour, we had so many other like things we just needed to like concentrate on, like COVID protocol and all this type of stuff. So it kind of fell by the wayside this time, but I think it's a good idea, and hopefully we get to do it again one day.
And that is super cool to kind of hear you say that because at the end of the day, the music is the most important. And yes, the Bayside Museum would be awesome for hardcore Bayside fans like
Mhm.
myself. But I also do understand that we have to focus on just getting shows up in the
Yeah.
way that we can right now. That's
Yeah,
probably the
exactly.
chief priority.
Yeah, totally.
Mm. And now, kind of shifting gears a bit, going into another direction, you have a brand new project, the Radio Show.
Mm.
Super cool. You talk a little bit about music. You got brand new tunes playing.
Hmm.
Um, and you also have like, the coffee talk on, Instagram live where you kind of interview bands. So you're kind of doing very much like very active in the music scene with these two
Hmm.
projects. Tell me a little bit about how that came to be, what the future of that looks like.
Yeah, the coffee with Nick like Instagram little series. I think I'm only gonna do about one more of those. That was more like just prep for tour, like kind of getting either bands we're going on tour with or bands we've played with in the past that have upcoming tours. Just people I'm close with, like going on tours like for, it's 20 years of or 21 years of Bayside, but I've been touring since I was 17. And I've made some great friends over the years. So everyone that I've done, one of these Instagram lives with is just people that I keep in touch with anyway. So it's like, hey, you want to hop on for 30 minutes and just chat? um, so yeah, I've had Dion from Anne Berlin, Kaylee Goldsworthy, JT from Hawthorne Heights. The newest one was with Joe from the Menzingers, and it's really just us kind of just sitting there talking. It's more like, hey, let's do this so we could promote our tour, but we wind up just talking about whatever, talking about our
Yeah.
days. I inevitably wind up bringing up Star Wars at some point. um, so yeah, that's fun. And like I said, more of like an idea of just to kind of raise awareness for our tour and whoever I'm talking to their tour too. Um, and the radio show is, my whole spiel with that is like I've done dating back probably like 10 years or so ago, me and Anthony had a show on Adobe Radio called Gumshoe Radio. Um, and finding music and discovering new music and like turning people on to music is like just a passion of mine. I mean, I'm a musician for a reason. Music is like one of the most important things to me. And again, here I go, getting older, I know that people kind of just fall back into what they listen to like kind of in their glory years, and I think it's gotten simultaneously like easier than ever to listen to whatever music you want, but then there's so many choices that it makes it hard to choose. So that's when you're like, I don't know, I guess I'll listen to Bayside for the 20,000th time instead of like throwing on something new. So I know Spotify in particular, I'm a Spotify user, so I know that they do a good job with making like daily mixes and like music discovery playlists, but I kind of just think that it like that's all algorithm based. It has like no human touch to it. And
Yeah.
I think that, for a certain age of like people from like 25 to, 45, 50 or so, like those people still remember turning on the radio and hearing like a human being in between songs and stuff like that. So the radio show is, it's presented as a podcast. It's exclusively on Spotify because I have to stream music. Um, and it's more like listening to the radio for an hour. It's not necessarily a podcast. I don't have guests per se. Like I don't have guest interviews on. I do have usually someone like quote unquote call in to request a song. So I've had Davey from Sharp Shock. I've had my friend who's a great tattoo artist, Gus James. He requested a song. So it's just a way for me to get like other creative people, whether they're artists, tattoo artists, musicians. I have all types of people who I'm going to have call in, and just have them call in and request a song, something that they think like my listeners will like. And then I
Mm,
concentrate like maybe on bands that everyone knows, but deep cuts or B-sides or stuff like that. So I don't know. To me, it's about when it comes to any sort of fandom, it's all about community. It's all about finding people that you like, that you agree with, that you could celebrate things that make you happy. And I think that that's kind of my midlife crisis was me more discovering like a huge Star Wars community and music and hockey and like gotten back into like wrestling after 20 years. It's like all these things have like an industry and a fandom behind them that has a super dedicated community, and there's no better feeling than being surrounded by those people. So um bringing it back to the radio show, I think just I want to build a community that like has discovering new artists and supporting new artists in the front of their minds, because it's really important, especially when it comes to rock music, because rock music, I don't even know if it's a top 5 genre anymore, and
yeah.
that's sad for someone who's made like I've dedicated my life to it, and I don't really see a reason why it's not popular. It's just more like about exposure. It's not that the product is any worse, because
Oh yeah.
clearly I'm playing 10 different bands every show that have songs that could easily be hits. There's just no exposure for them. So there's no MTV, there's no proper radio. And sure, there's, YouTube and Spotify and all this stuff. It's just like everything is free and awesome, but it's just really hard to focus. So
Yeah.
I concentrate at least for the first 10 episodes. I'm about to record after I speak to you. I'm about to record my 7th episode. I'm doing 10 new artists every show for the first 10 episodes. That'll be 100 artists without repeating any that are
Yeah.
either new to people or, like I said, like I'll play like a deep cut from Rancid, like stuff like that. Like, yeah, of course everyone knows Rancid, but maybe you don't know this song, or maybe it's a newer deep cut that you definitely didn't hear. That's still a great song. So to me, it's all about building that community and then showing support for artists. I talk about tour dates a lot. So if someone discovers, like for instance, the first show I played, Mannequin, a bunch of people wrote me and were like, "Oh, that band was awesome." I'm like, "Cool, they're going on tour now. They're on tour right
Yeah.
now."
Yeah.
So it's more about that kind of discovery, because obviously, I'm not going to make these bands a bunch of money by streaming their songs, but if I could get someone to like their band and then that person buys a ticket, buys a shirt, I'm feeling like I'm doing something right. So I'm just in the process of cranking out these shows once a week and just building a bunch of listeners up.
That's the thing is like I think when it comes to new music, there needs to be a human touch. You're so right. Like I love streaming, but the market is so oversaturated with streaming because now you
Hmm.
have the entire music library at your fingertips.
Yeah,
Anything you want in the universe, any
yeah,
song ever released, any demo, all right there. And
hmm,
because there's just so much of it, you need like a person to tell you, hey, this is what I like that's come
yeah,
up. I know me personally, I love Shane Told's podcast, Lead Singer Syndrome. He's got like this weekly new music thing, like the best
hmm,
top 5 releases. I love your show, Radio, where you actually get to say, hey, here's what I'm listening to, here's what I'm liking.
yeah,
You might like it too. And it just adds
yeah.
that human element.
Yeah, because I think where besides me speaking, like I would say I do 10 songs. I would say the show's, always under about 50 minutes, but there's probably about 8 minutes of talking. It's mostly music. And I think that the human element, besides me talking, is the fact that to me, like, I wouldn't say I have like the broadest range of like music that I listen to, but it's all within some sort of like alternative music umbrella. So I could like in my head, there's no reason why I can't play Rancid followed by Jenny Lewis. They have some sort of connection to me because they sound nothing
Yeah.
alike. They're not the same technical genre, but they're all in like an alternative umbrella. And I tend to focus on songwriting and melody with what I like. So to me, if you like the way a Rancid song is structured and has certain melodies to it, to me, there's a direct line and no reason why I couldn't play Jenny Lewis next or play like an electronic, like more like a churches after that. You know, like there's something with the attitude and the emotion that these bands all have in common. And I think that like an algorithm's not, unless the algorithm is fully based on what you're listening to, like a music recommendation algorithm might just be like, so you listen to Rancid, here's 10 more bands that sound like Rancid.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I think like we all need to broaden our horizons, you know, as much as we can. And if you're focused on melody and songwriting and just kind of emotion in songs, then there's no difference between you know, I'm trying to think of two other wacky ones that I would play, like a Leon Bridges followed by the Bouncing Souls, you know, like it all
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense to me.
Because like you're right, the music is so much more than just the instrumentation. It's it's
Hmm.
it's the personality. You know, like punk
Yeah.
music is about like rebellion. You know, it doesn't have
Hmm.
to always just be guitars. You know, I know a lot of very almost indie sounding people that I consider punk artists because they're
Hmm.
just they've
Totally.
got that attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what like I don't know what it is, a sixth sense or something, but like I could hear that in songs. Like honestly, what my top artist that I listen to right now is Dua Lipa, and I just feel like, hey, I believe every single word that she's singing. You know, there's true emotion in everything, and those songs are catchy as hell. And I'm like, you know what? I'm it took me years to listen to her because I thought she was just some like, you know,
Yeah.
like I'm not digging like Ariana Grande and stuff like that. Like that wasn't really for me, but I lumped her in there without ever hearing her music. And then once I found I threw on there was like an NPR like Tiny Desk
Yeah.
session of Dua Lipa, and it wasn't in the proper Tiny Desk because it was in like it was during pandemic, so it was in this like little cool like postmodern looking studio, and it was like she just crushed it, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, all right, this is one of the best things I've ever heard, and it truly is. So big Dua Lipa fan here.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So thank you again so much for talking with me today.
Of course.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll just say this real quickly for all of our New Jersey and New York listeners listening in. You guys are coming to Starland Ballroom on September 4th, and you're coming to New York Terminal 5 on September 5th. So obviously, anybody listening into this definitely is going to want to tune into those dates. Radio show available on Spotify. You know, definitely check it out. Before I go, I have to ask you a question. Obviously,
Yes.
you've talked about it a few times. Behind you, I can see a lot of Star Wars.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm personally also a huge Star Wars fan. We could do a
Nice.
whole nother hour of just Star
Yeah.
Wars talk, but I'll keep it short for the sake of brevity.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the sequels?
I enjoy them. You know, like every single Star Wars movie has its flaws, and every single Star Wars trilogy has its flaws. So, I dig them. There's some stuff I wish that I would have rather have liked to see, but I am happy to have Star Wars in my life. It's like the earliest memory I have of liking something. You know, like,
Yeah,
and honestly, my mother tells me that even before I had, you know, like I start having memories like that I actually remember around 3 or 4, and my mother says that like I liked Star Wars since I was like 2. So I'm like, I don't even remember that, you know? That might just be
yeah,
brainwashing that I love Star Wars so much, but again, it's all about the community. So I went to in 2019, I went to Star Wars Celebration in Chicago, and you know that thing has tens of thousands of people at it, and it's just such a good atmosphere to be around people who are just enjoying something. And you know, there's plenty of you know, trolls in the Star Wars community too. I don't
yeah,
really pay attention to them, but
yeah,
yeah, I dig the sequels. And about a little over a year ago, I'm sitting in my podcast little studio right now in my house. Me, Ryan from Yellow Card, and Adam from Story of the Year started a Star Wars podcast that comes out every week called Thank the Maker. And right now we're just covering the Bad Batch, but you know, every when there's not something to cover weekly, we kind of just have fun with Star Wars and have guests on and all that type of stuff. So, um, but yeah, that was a long answer. But the sequels, I like. I take it for what it's worth. You know, like
yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and like compare it to the original trilogy that everybody on the world grew up with, that's 40 years old and reveres as perfect. It's like, you know what? If you really want to be like play advocate, you could comb through all of those movies and find imperfections and stupid things in those too. So I'm not going to pretend like those are the absolute, gold standard perfect movies. They're the ones everyone loves the most, but they're not perfect. So why are we
Yeah.
going to like really judge the prequels or the sequels? It just doesn't make sense. Either you love Star Wars or you don't. You can't just say I love 3 movies. I love Star Wars, but only 3 movies. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I don't think that's not fair. It's like not a fair
Mhm.
assessment. So I dig it. I love it. I love the community behind it. Can't wait for more.
That's the thing, is just like I feel like with Star Wars, there's like so many layers. You've got the books, the comics, the movies. Like there is never going to be, we're never going to run out of source material.
Yeah.
And even if we were to start now, we would probably take 100 years to run out of source material. And they're still
Yeah.
making more source material
Totally.
to this day. So it's just such a fun fan base to be a part of.
Yeah.
Because you'll always have new stuff to talk about.
Totally. No, as much as people want to complain about like the Disney era or whatever, and I think it's a smaller amount of people than that's just how the internet works. I think it's a
Yeah.
smaller amount of people than, the people who actually love Star Wars, but the people who dislike it are louder. That's just that's the definition of the internet. Um, so
Yeah.
it's, I think Disney's doing a great job like keeping it, cranking out content but keeping it sacred at the same time. So it's special, and I think that they realize with probably some missteps here and there with the sequels, like what to do and what the fan base expects, so they don't expect like 18 movies in 10 years like Marvel, but one movie every couple of years. And I think just the way Disney Plus is cranking out both Marvel and Star Wars shows in a very like cinematic sense, I think the focus will be a little bit more on like series for the next couple of years, and I have no problem with that. I think it's great, and it's like the expanding on like the things that the like hardcore Star Wars fan love. They're able to like
Mm.
tell stories
Hmm.
slower, which I think lets you give more details, which the true Star Wars nerds want all of the details. So series on Disney Plus are definitely helping with that.
That's my thing is, with a movie, you get 2 hours of a character arc and that's it. And you have all these other characters that have to have character arcs as well. With a show, you have like 10 episodes with
Yeah,
like as much leeway as you want.
totally.
But again, thank you so much for talking with
Of
me today. I don't
course.
want to take up too much more of your time, but I really, really appreciate it. Bayside on tour in a few weeks. Definitely check them out.
Mhm.